I'm Lønge, and I'm a senior lecturer at the Pitt School of Governance and also a research manager of the research manager of Tayarisha, and I'll be chairing today's event. As our last presenter of the year, we have our very own Phelelani Mpanza, who's a postdoc at Tayarisha, where he's working on the GovTech incubator that we are trying to set up. I'll introduce Phelelani properly just now, but first I wanted to use the opportunity just to update everyone on what we've been up to since the last Lunchbox event, beginning of November, I believe. So on the 17th of November, we co-hosted a dialogue on artificial intelligence in fiscal and monetary policy. And that was co-hosted with the African Center for Economic Transformation, which is an Accra-based non-profit think tank. And yesterday, we hosted a roundtable discussion on South Africa's digital economy and the role of regulation, innovation, and competition, which was organized in partnership with Google. Both events were the first of their kind, but we expect that these partnerships, both with ACID and with Google, will lead to more and similar events in 2023 and more to follow next year. Meanwhile, we've been very, very busy with our inaugural working paper series, which is sponsored by the Hans Seidel Foundation. Back in early October, we commissioned 17 working papers, all examining the effect of digitalization on state-society relations in Africa, covering a wide range of topics across economics, politics, social issues, innovation, etc. In late October, we had an authors workshop, and last week we received the draft papers. These papers will be published on a rolling basis in the first and second quarter of 2023. And in parallel, we will be organizing a series of regional and thematic events in order to spark debates about the challenges and opportunities presented by digitalization in Africa. Again, more to follow next year, so please watch the space. I think that's it. There's a lot of other things happening, a lot of things in the pipeline, but we will update you once they get a little more concrete. We will continue the Lunchbox events also in 2023, and we're currently finalizing the program. So if you would like to present your research or any other work you're doing, please reach out to Supervision. It doesn't really matter whether you are a practitioner, whether you are a graduate student or a very seasoned academic. We want an inclusive space for everyone, so please do reach out if you have something you would like to present. Okay, so without further ado, now to the main attraction of today's event, Phelelani. As I already said, Phelelani is a postdoc at Tayarisha and also the WITS Innovation Center. And again, as I said, he's working mainly on GovTech and working on establishing this GovTech incubator. Phelelani has a PhD in business sciences from Leeds University and previously lectured on strategy and entrepreneurship. I believe in the School of Business Sciences. He's nodding, so I take that as that's correct. Before joining Tayarisha, Phelelani worked as a management consultant at 2020 Insight, focusing on broad-based Black economic empowerment. In 2016, he completed a BRICS program on global governance at Fudan University in China, and he was also awarded a Student Entrepreneur Award of the Year by the Association of Black Securities and Investment Professionals. Today, he'll be sharing some insights from his PhD research, which focused on innovation within challenger banks in South Africa. The title of this presentation is The Role of Organizational Antecedents. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but you can clarify.
Yeah.
On innovation among South African challenger banks. So Phelelani, welcome. You've been here before, but not in the hot seat. So welcome in the hot seat. I really look forward to your presentation. I've heard about your research, but I think it's the first time we actually get to hear from you. So please, for you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Aftan. Good afternoon to everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to present my research on the Lunchbox series. Today, I'll be presenting the work that I did for my PhD. So the topic is the role of organizational antecedents on innovation among South African challenger banks. So unpack the research and give you a more overview of the findings, the implications on the research. So just to give you a bit of background in terms of the context of the research, in South Africa, the South African banking sector has been dominated by 4 big banks for decades, and of late it has been dominated by 5 big banks with the inclusion of Capitec from 2011. So these 5 big banks occupy and account about 90% of bankable assets in South Africa. So this paints a picture of how concentrated the sector is amongst these 5 big players in the banking sector. And over the past decade, we've realized recently that the banking sector has made progress in terms of corporate entrepreneurship, which is an element of organizational antecedents. We will briefly unpack how the two interlink, but the research is firmly embedded in corporate entrepreneurship, with a specific focus looking at organizational antecedents, which are internal elements of an organization that influence the corporate entrepreneurship behavior. What we've noted on the sector is the evolvement which has been introduced by innovation. The sector is becoming more digital, and as a result, we have seen a transformation in the front layer of the banking businesses. It's more becoming digital, it's more becoming fast-paced, it's more becoming agile in terms of technology and how things are done in terms of the banking process. So a lot has changed in terms of the systems, the back office process, and this is all due to the innovation that has emerged from fintech organization and also the improvements in technology that has resulted through technology. So the dominance of these 5 players has been threatened by the entrance and the recent launch of challenger banks. The challenger banks that I'm referring to in South African context, it's TymeBank Digital, Discovery Bank, which is a behavioral bank, which was recently launched in 2019, and also Bank Zero, which has been recently launched in 2021, but is going to fully be operational in the early first quarter of 2023. So what we've noted is that in the financial results across all the big 5 banks, it hasn't been business as usual. They've been hit firstly by COVID, and also they've been now been threatened in terms of market share by the new challenger banks that have been just arrived. Just to give you a sense, when TymeBank entered in 2018, already they had about 600,000 clients that they managed to register through the partnership that they had with retail banks. So that speaks to the fast pace of how they were able to onboard some of the clients, which the big 5 were not able to tap into. So in terms of also the research is firmly embedded in corporate entrepreneurship, and the literature suggests that corporate entrepreneurship literature suggests that CE falls in 3 main categories, which is the antecedents, the process, and the consequences of corporate entrepreneurship. So the organizational principles are directly linked to a corporate entrepreneurship strategy of a organization. So if you want to address your corporate entrepreneurship strategy as an organization of how you continue to grow your existing business, you need to look into your organizational antecedents, which we will further unpack, which are the 5 key main antecedents that a business, a board of directors that focus on a strategy should focus on, or a senior or high management in a banking organization or in any other organization. So just to give you a sense of the market share, I just pulled out something from business tech to demonstrate how concentrated the sector is. So you look at the big 5 banks account for 91.1% of all the assets in the banking sector, and then you have other banks, which are your smaller banks, accounting for 4.0, and then 5.9, which are your local branches of international banks, your likes of Citibanks, Merrill Lynch, your Deutsche Bank, and the likes. So they account for about 5.6%. And this is as of March 2021. And then just to paint a clearer picture now, with the introduction and the launch of the new challenger banks, for now we look at Time Bank and Discovery Bank, because Bank Zero hasn't been fully operational, so we cannot really attach a market share in terms of total assets. So you will see that within the space of 3 years since the challenger banks have arrived, they've been able to shape the industry and take about 7.6% of the market share from the other banks. So the word challenger banks, perhaps just to explain that. So challenger banks are described as any organization that doesn't necessarily falls under the big 5 banks, which are the legacy banks. So it's a relatively new phenomenon in South Africa, and we hope that research will hold shape and explaining the present, because it's a global phenomenon, but it's now happening in South Africa. And then in terms of further breakdown in terms of total assets, you will see that Standard Bank takes the front end at 2.81 trillion in terms of assets, and then followed by your first rand group, which is your FNB first rand group, and then you have your ABSA and Nedbank. So these are the top 4 players, and then we have the inclusion of the Capitec to make it the big 5 players, which is now also take up the space, and then you have other banks which share a portion of the 1.37 trillion in terms of assets. So why challenger banks? Just to explain now the focus of challenger banks. So challenger banks are seen to have a good impact in the South African challenger banks from also a customer's experience. They provide a much wider choice in terms of taking from the big 5, and they also put pressure in terms of the quality of services, to which the way they structured their business model, and it also puts a downward pressure in terms of price of services. You see banks now going back to review their pricing models, because now the competition is well open in the sector. So digital banks have a lower cost base due to the fact that they don't have much infrastructure in terms of branch presence. Your Bank Zero, for instance, is a purely digital bank. It doesn't have any branch whatsoever. And if you look at Time Bank, how they structured themselves, they don't set up a branch. They've partnered with retail stores, such as Pick n Pay, to set up their presence for customers. So they use the platform where consumers are buying from certain retail stores in terms of rolling out their presence and the client-based network. So it's a drastic change in terms of how other business models from other banks have been planned out. And then this has forced some banks to relook their models, to cut down on physical branch and force customers to use digital platforms such as online banking, installment banking, and the likes. So the unbanked market in South Africa has presently wasn't a market that really tapped to reach, and so other factors. But technology has been able to provide a market opportunity for banks to be able to reach some of these players, some of these untapped banking customers, to be able to use their services. And then the entrance of Time Bank, Discovery Bank, will promote competition within the sector, financial inclusion, and also using technology to be able to drive banking costs down while challenging the dominance of the other players. And these banks are not just chance takers in the market, they have been backed by well-resourced entrepreneurs from South Africa. Your Time Bank is banked by Patrice Mtsebe, who owns about 51% of the Time Bank group. And we have Michael Jordan, who's a former banker for FNB, who's a key player in setting up Bank Zero. And then we had Aaron Crow, who's a founder of Discovery, who started Discovery Bank. And Discovery Bank is a behavioral bank. It uses stuff such as your vitality in order to promote your rewards and incentives for cash, which has attracted a lot of players. So in terms of corporate entrepreneurship is an entrepreneurial organization based, and it's an organization, and a well-established organization displaying attributes of a business to try and continue to grow and remain competitive in the sector. So the presence of organizational antecedents play a critical role in order to be able to understand how managers act entrepreneurial in an organization. So the 5 that have been consistent throughout corporate research, organizational antecedents, are your management supports. Is there enough management support to employees in order for them to create ideas, concepts to run, and that will be innovative and contribute to the growth of the business? Rewards, incentives. Workers within an organization rewarded for their ideas. We've seen the case of your Vodacom, please call the idea, where corporate is fighting against one of its employees that really wasn't rewarded and recognized enough for one of the ideas that has contributed billions to the organization. And then we look at work discretion, how much authority and sort of mobility an employee has discretion in terms of making decisions, in terms of innovative and new products to the business. And then time availability, how much time is given to an employee to be able to experiment their ideas, test their ideas, and then before they're put into the markets, and encouragement as well for them to work on ideas that shape the organization. And then organizational boundaries, this is now looking at cross-sectional partnerships in terms of functionality amongst employees in an organization. And then the importance of antecedents is very important in enforcing corporate entrepreneurship activities in an established organization. This has been recognized in several studies from researchers and practitioners in corporate entrepreneurship. And then entrepreneurial organizations are seen to be displaying corporate entrepreneurship organizations in South Africa, including banks as well. So it is important for us to understand the key contributors of organizational antecedents in competitive behavior and also performance that leads to growth in such businesses. So the purpose of the study, of the research, was to then determine the impacts of organizational antecedents on innovation. And in terms of innovation, we look at innovation from two sort of broad dimensions, which is process innovation and also product innovation, which leads to process innovation, is the efficiency of offering a service to your customers, how efficient the service can be offered using technological platforms, and also product innovation. This is the creation of new products that didn't necessarily exist previously, to try and tap into new markets and also remain competitive in the market. And as I've alluded earlier on, we will look at the relationship from 5 broad organizational assets, which is management supports, work discretion rewards, which is also incentives, time availability, and organizational and boundaries, and then focus on your challenger banks in South Africa, which are your 3 Time Bank, Digital Bank, Discovery Bank, and your Bank Zero. It is suggested by corporate entrepreneurship literature that the efforts are, in terms of corporate entrepreneurship, can create a competitive advantage if they are implemented accordingly, and if workers are nurtured in the right way and are supported and give the necessary tools in order to be able to create new products that will continue to grow business and remain competitive. So just to explain the difference, I know that the technologies can become confusing between corporate entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship. So corporate entrepreneurship exists or happens in a existing business, a business that has been established, your likes of Bidvest, your F&B, but that business also needs to continue to grow and remain competitive in the marketplace. So it then becomes a corporate entrepreneurship. And then you have your independent entrepreneurship, where you're just a small SME, you're a survivalist or necessity entrepreneur, you're independent, and you just run your own business, or it's a family business. So corporate entrepreneurship can occur in 3 broad categories. The first one is corporate venturing, and this can happen internally or externally, where there's a merger of 2 big businesses. That's an external example. And then internally, this is where a business maybe unbundles and partners with a business within a group of companies, and that can be seen as a corporate venture in terms of corporate entrepreneurship. And then innovation creates a platform to create new products, to review and revive your business, and in that way you are able to practice and contribute to entrepreneurship activities. And then strategic review or renewal speaks to reviewing if some of the products are still applicable to the markets, and then changing some of them. Some companies will unbundle to maybe streamline some of their products and change some of their business model and make their business entities more competitive. And then just to explain the independent variables before I get into the conceptual relationship and how the framework was structured for this research. We look at management supports. So management supports is the encouragement of managers. These are first-line managers, top managers, senior managers, to act entrepreneurially within an organization to ensure that they are supported. So management plays a key role in encouraging employees in believing in their innovation that's expected from everyone, and everyone is expected to come up with ideas that shape up the business. And then work discretion. This now speaks to making decisions, the process, without criticizing anyone that will make mistakes in the process of product development. And then incentives. This is rewarding people that continue to act to contribute to entrepreneurial behaviors and becoming more proactive, while they are moderate in terms of the risks that they take. And then time availability speaks to how much each employee is given to incubate and experiment their ideas. The concept of feasibility and experimenting some of the ideas that employees will come up with. Is there enough time available for them to take up some of their ideas that they may think that they can shape the business? Slides are going back. Slides.
Try to know it again.
Just sorry about that. Try and show you. Okay, yeah. You can see it pretty well.
And update. Just need to wait.
Apologies for that. No hybrid event without tech glitches. So it's showing.
Can I try again to share?
You can try. So online it's sharing, but
can you proceed on
online. Okay.
Give this.
and for people in the room?
Yeah, it's coming.
Slide 15.
Okay, I'll just pick up where we left off. Sorry, we got a bit of technology challenges. So I was explaining the last two independent variables in terms of the organizational antecedents. The organizational boundaries refer to the alignment between departments and functions where one, let's say, one working in back office can now work with the product development team to try and set up ideas. So organizational boundaries refers to tools that govern the idea generation and the value chain of realizing an idea up until its implementation when it becomes a new product. And then the two moderating variables in this case was entrepreneurship orientation and the organizational climate. So entrepreneurship orientation refers to the mindset and the outlook of an organization to act entrepreneurial. So it refers to the management philosophy and decision making in terms of business ideas and the likes. And then organizational climate refers to the influence of the organization in terms of driving behavior and attitudes and behavior relating to entrepreneurship within the employee. And then we have your independent variable, which is your innovation. So in reviewing literature around innovation, we've came across of wild theories ranging from radical innovation, other theories including your disruptive innovation by Christensen, open innovation, and the jobs to be done theories, which are prominent theories amongst innovation. But the most prominent that we used for this study was disruptive innovation, and also the jobs to be done theory that was firmly linked to corporate behavior and challenger banks. So I make examples of how this theory was particularly linked to the challenger banks in South Africa. So if you look at disruptive innovation, these are the stuff that are likely to occur. There's an entrance created by a new market or a new channel, or the value proposition is unique or novel compared to incumbents that are already in the sector. So if you look at the South African banking sector, already it was concentrated. There hasn't been, in fact, globally, there hasn't been a behavioral bank. So Discovery was the first behavioral bank in the world to be set up and disrupt the business model around health, around clients' behavior, and that's how disruptive and that's how innovative it has been in terms of theory. And then innovation coming from a downward market. So this is evident in the case of the Time Bank, where the partner Pick n Pay to roll out some of their services. And then we are considered to be inferior by the incumbent products, and in this case, less safe, less trustworthy, and especially if you're looking at financial services sector, where customers take information very critically, and anything that has to do with money is very sensitive. So, and however, at the same time, we look at the second attributes, which are superior in an unprecedented series. And in this case, the classical example that I could make is Bank Zero, where there is no physical presence in terms of branch and so on. And then just to explain the relationship, the conceptual relationship for the research, you will see that your independent variables there, your management support, work discretion, rewards, time availability, organizational boundaries, and then your mediators, organizational climates, and your entrepreneurship orientation. And then I also included moderators, which I believe facilitate the relationship banking, which is your company size. I believe how big the company is or how small the company is moderates the relationship between these variables, and also the employee role also moderates the relationship between these variables, and also the level of education, your human capital amongst the employees will moderate the role between your management supports and your innovation, for instance. And then your dependent variable in this case was innovation. So in total, I had 7 main hypotheses and mediating the relationship between the independent variables and the dependent variables. And then we had three moderator variables amongst the moderators to further facilitate and determine the relationship amongst the variables. And then just to give you a background and the classification of the challenger banks, they can be classified in three broad categories from global literature on challenger banks. So you have your classical challenger bank, which is blends traditional and has an innovative model in terms of how it scales and seeks to expand to its customer base. So in this case, in South Africa, one would think of your time, in the manner in which they're able to structure their model in terms of reaching out to clients in a cost-effective way without having to set up a physical branch to partner with an existing player able to leverage off in terms of accessing their client while offering your service. And then you have your contemporary challenges, which predominantly plan digitally first or maybe digitally completely. An example that comes to play is your bank zero, and then you have your new challenger bank, which tailors its customer to undeserved markets and also offers cutting edge technology such as your Discovery Bank in terms of South African context. And then in terms of the research methodology, the research was qualitative research. Questionnaires were distributed by email to employees within the three challenger banks. The research adopted an exploratory approach in terms of understanding the relationship between organizational assets and also innovation. It was a cross-sectional research. I obtained about 356 respondents from 1,300 questionnaires that were distributed from all the three challenger banks to all employees. And then just to demonstrate some of the findings. So in terms of the research, in terms of its internal consistency and its instrument reliability, we used the corporate entrepreneurship instrument, which has been widely used across corporate entrepreneurship research globally, and also added on the Entrepreneurship Orientation and organizational climate questionnaires to make the questionnaire and applicable to the study. But you will realize that all the contrast alpha are above 6 and 7, 0.7, which is an acceptable reliability for any instrument for research. And quite interestingly, innovation was 9.1. Which demonstrated how reliable the questionnaire was for the purpose of the study. And then the findings, of course, for the research suggest that globally, not all challenger banks have delivered on the promise in the launch of the planning to deliver their services. But there has to develop a clear segmentation model in terms of how they differentiate themselves from the from your big five bank, for instance. And also what we noted from the research was that there is consistency in terms of antecedents that are found as a strategic corporate entrepreneurship found, and there have been a relationship between your autonomy, management support, and rewards amongst the players, and the relationship was positive amongst the OAs and innovation across the five organizational antecedents. And then implications for research. This will somewhat influence employees or managers to keep up with technological advancements that are coming up with fintechs in the markets, so that they are able to remain competitive, and also to take seriously the organizational antecedents in terms of driving entrepreneurial behavior among employees, and also finding a practical implication for your entrepreneurs are employees that are acting entrepreneurial within an organization and existed for South Africa as well. So this brings us to the end of the presentation. I will now welcome questions and comments to you, Chair, for the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phelelani, for a very clear and very structured presentation about something I know absolutely nothing about. So I really enjoyed that. I have some questions myself, but I want to give people in the room, online, an opportunity to ask their questions first. If there are any, I don't know if there were any questions in the chat, otherwise doesn't seem like it. Anyone in the room?
Comments?
I'm checking online also. No hands up for them.
Oh, maybe.
I was just interested to know, in terms of speaking about the entrepreneurship inside the banks.
Yeah.
How much of that is dedicated teams that are actually paid to come up with innovation, and how much does it sort of organically grow? I mean, I've spoken to it before. Apologize.
Maybe we can just take another question, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. My question is about the profile of the founders of the challenging banks, and like how, like what are their backgrounds and how familiar with them from the like the banking sector, big five sector, and also the profile of the entrepreneurs, the innovators from the organization. So if you,
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll go first. I'll start with your question, but okay, thanks for the question. I think it's a good question. So, traditionally in the banking sector, how banks operate in terms of and understanding the market shift to become more, they use consultants. And consultants would work with executives, consultant will, the likes of Bain, your McKinsey's, and the likes will conduct research, will sort of paint a picture of what is happening currently in the industry and what is likely to happen going forward in the future, what are the trends in the markets, what are the shift, what are the new products that are coming into play. But then in certain banks, I've worked in the bank myself, there are teams which are dedicated to product development, for improving existing products and also coming up with new product that will shape the efficiency of current service or also improve the efficiency for new services. So banks would use either or, whether they go for consulting, which is more expensive than having a dedicated team of product developers, which will just focus on reviving existing products and coming up with new ideas in the business. But it has to be someone who's very experienced with product development and very diverse in terms of the banking sector and the understanding of banking services. And then to come to your question, so if you look at the entrepreneurs which are firmly embedded in these three challenger banks, for example, your purchasing sector is somewhat involved in the financial services sector through investing in companies such as Sanlam, but his core business background is mining, but because he's got enough capital, has been able to diversify his investment portfolio across various other sectors. Because if you look at African renewable capital, it has almost stakes and shares in most other financial services, not necessarily banks. So I was really first put in the industry to get into Thailand. Initially, they were minority shareholders, now they've bought out the stock. as they realize the potential of the bank. And if you look at Bank Zero is Michael Jordan and his partners. They come from a first-rank group. They were working for years in first rank. They drive the digital transformation of first rank group before they went out to start working on Thai Bank. And then with the Discovery Bank, Ellen Grow was mostly in the insurance space, but they realized that with the leverage that they have in terms of clients, they can expand and get into banking services. Initially, this Discovery Bank worked close in better partnership in terms of their bank office with FNB until they reached the stage where they were able to roll out and fully flesh their services to their clients. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm just checking whether there's anything on the line. It doesn't seem to be the case. Then I will use my powers as chair and also ask. Sorry. Oh, okay. Maybe we should take that question first then. So this is from Emmanuel. Thank you, such an insightful presentation. And with the challenger banks, there are digital firsts with its competitive advantage above brick and mortar models. Question: do you see the legacy banks' digital strategies being innovative enough to maintain the market advantage and cherry picking from the challengers?
So,
maybe I think this is Emmanuel. Maybe you can give
exactly.
a chance to come in. Go ahead, Emmanuel.
Oh no, thank you. You did it right. I just raised my hand because I thought you didn't see the question. Thanks. You can go ahead.
It's all right.
Oh, okay. Let's go ahead. Yes. So since 2017, the legacy banks realized that actually this is now the direction of the industry, and with the trends of challenger banks, they've now gone back and revived their model and are looking to become more digital. They've invested a lot on digital infrastructure, your FNBs, your app servers. Some have even rebranded to make sure that they're keeping up with the pace to maintain the market advantage. They do the one advantage that the legacy banks hold on to is the trust. And that's the tool that they're able to rely on to maintain the clientele that they have. But they need to also look into shaping the digital offering to be less price costly to retain these customers. Because as the challenger banks gain traction, people will also now start to trust new players once they've been able to experiment or test some of their services, and now they'll be able to take some of the clients from them. Thanks. I hope I answered your question, Emmanuel.
I think you did a very interesting point about the trust. I think we have a few minutes left, and I want to abuse my powers again as chair and ask. I actually have two questions, and then they're fairly broad questions, so I'm not sure whether we can cover. But I was just wondering, I mean, because this is very focused on private sector and banking specifically, and I was just curious whether you had some reflections on the extent to which the public sector can learn from this. Is there anything that's so that you have those five, what you call them, corporate entrepreneurship, and you have these five dimensions, or I can't remember what you call it.
Organizational essence.
Those ones.
Yeah.
To what extent they're applicable to the public sector? Is there something the public sector can learn from that way of creating an entrepreneurial space within a corporate setting? So So that's the first question. The second thing is an even bigger question. What does the emergence of these challenging banks mean for the banking sector? I mean, you've touched upon that already, but what, as an extension of that, what does those changes within the banking sector mean for state-society relations, which is one of the things we are sort of broadly exploring in the context of Tayarisha?
Yeah.
Does it affect power structures? I mean, already within, we've spoken about that, but the power structures between the sector and government, or between the sector and citizens. So very big questions. I'm just curious to hear whether you have any reflections on those questions.
Yeah, good questions. Thanks, Hafan. I think I'll take the first one. The applicability of the organizational antecedents in public sector. So are they applicable? The question, the outright answer to that is yes, but have they been explored enough? The question is no, not at this stage, not in South Africa at least. But should they be explored? I think if you look at the current trajectory of South African state-owned enterprises, they should be one element in which they should be explored to make sure that they remain competitive. But the reality of South African state-owned enterprises is that they're not commercial enough to be able to influence such a behavior. They address other social illnesses or they're part of a mandate to address some social illnesses such as unemployment, inequalities, and so on. But they should, organizational essence should be also looked at in state-owned enterprises and public sector organizations to make sure that they remain competitive, to make sure that employees are able to contribute to new ideas and also take up new ideas and give them enough time to run up with them so that the organization continues to survive and remain competitive in this space. But how that could be influenced is maybe through a public sector partnership. That's only where we can start realizing the entrepreneurial behavior coming up from also the public sector. And then the second question, very interesting question, I must say. Yes, the emergence of this new challenger bank do shape the power struggle, the power structure in the banking sector as a whole, and also they influence policy and regulation. If you look at getting a license, a banking license in South Africa, was really difficult. But with these new players, they've demonstrated that it's possible. It's a reality. It happens. You just need to follow the process in as much as it takes a while to happen. And also the introduction of these fintech players in this place has forced on governments to also relook into some of their prudential authority monetary acts. The Reserve Bank is going to be introducing new acts to make sure that they they govern the governance of these new players in terms of their platforms that they're using. They're protecting the customer and also the operation of these businesses, since some of them are partnering with international players.
Okay, thanks for that. And it speaks to some of the work we are also doing around policy dialogues and the idea of digital ready legislation. And I suppose there's something we could perhaps explore further. We're coming to the end. We have 2 minutes left. So I suggest we wrap up. Thanks to everyone who joined, both online and in the room. Thanks very much to Phelelani for his presentation. I don't think, I'm looking at you, Supervisor, we don't have a date for the next Lunchbox events, but I think we will communicate probably in the beginning of the year. We have a client program for the first 6 months. Once again, just a reminder, if you have anything you would like to present, then reach out and we will find a suitable slot. Thanks for this. Thanks. I suppose also thank you for the first 6 months of the Tayarisha Lunchbox events. We started, I believe, in June, May, June. So yeah, we've had six of these events, and we will continue in 2023. So thanks to everyone for participating as speakers, as listeners. So we thank you all for that. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.